everyone, it's Silvia, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to have a look at about 10 decks that I'm absolutely in love with lately. So let me start with these two decks. Oh my god. So it is time for voting now. If you're a member of my channel, thank you so much. It's so much fun to interact with all of you guys in this platform. And it is time to vote, so please vote if you haven't done so. I'm always kind of insisting for members to vote on the next deck that we're going to study, because obviously if you don't vote, I cannot hear what your preferences are. And this time, this Thursday, actually, we're doing a live wrap-up video of all the vampire themed decks that we've been studying for the vampire folklore study, which was across a multitude of decks. I actually used around 8 decks for that study, and we've had so much fun because we had a quiz that was telling us to which vampire clan we belong to, and then according to the vampire clan, I was doing the energies of the week videos. I was reading them for the vampire clan rather than the zodiac sign for a couple of months there, and it's been actually really a lot of fun. So now we've changed deck for the energies of the week, and I have to say that every time that I'm filming one of those videos, I kind of rekindle the flame for the deck that I'm using, because honestly, when you do a deep dive like I do every week on 4 cards, for example, you really have to be in commune with these cards, and it's so much fun, but at the same time it also gives you almost a different perspective on the deck from the one you used to have. Like in many cases, not all the time, but in many cases I found myself finding a new found respect for the deck, because it's just showing me nuances that I wasn't necessarily aware of before. And I'm kind of hoping that this will happen for these 2 decks, because we're actually going to do a study of either one of these 2. So either the Unveiled Tarot or the Find Your Magic Tarot. I have to say that the Unveiled Tarot for now, it's winning, but at the time of filming and at the time of posting probably will still be. But in any case, if you're a member of my channel, I haven't voted yet, please vote, and you can go in the community page and you will see the poll, because we're going to decide, and I'm probably going to close the poll by the end of this week. So you still have a couple of days to vote if you don't. If you haven't had the opportunity to. So let's have a look at these 2. The Unveiled Tarot and, as I said, the Find Your Magic Tarot. These are both mass market decks, so I always try and make sure that we choose a mass market deck when we're going to choose a deck to study with my members, because I know that a lot of my members will buy the deck we choose to study, and I just don't want to force people to spend a lot of money. So mass market decks are, generally speaking, cheaper, more affordable than the indie ones. So looking at this one, the Find Your Magic Tarot by Giulia Manzi, and it's been illustrated by Sarah Rottlish. They're both Italian to my knowledge, and this deck has been bought by US Games, but it was originally, someone actually explained that to me, it was originally printed by Vivida publishers, and that's the reason why it comes with this typical Vivida box, that it's a drawer box and it opens from the bottom, which is not my favorite, to be honest, guys, because every time that I pick up this deck, imagine it's on a shelf and I pick it up like this and it just falls out from the bottom. It's fine, and I know that many of you probably have the right box that has the right dimension and it doesn't slip out of the box, but mine does, unfortunately. So it does come with a guidebook as well. I'm probably going to zoom in a little bit more. And I have to say, so this one has been written by Giulia Manzi, so I would love to get my hands on the Italian version of this deck, or at least the Italian version of the guidebook, because I love what it's written here. I really think that Giulia has done a fantastic job, but I would love to see the original Italian, just because it feels sometimes, and that might just be me, probably because when it comes to a translation from Italian into English, I tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist, but it feels like it's not necessarily translated. I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10. Now, I know that I sound really picky, and I'm generally not. The only reason why I'm saying this is because if you do, I'm telling you that if you do have the Italian edition, you might actually get to enjoy this deck even more. I have the feeling that we're missing something in the English translation. This is not to say anything about whomever translated the deck. It's just that being fluent in both languages, I'm kind of wondering, what did she actually write in the original here, and why has it been translated this way or that way? So as always, we find the second box inside the box, which is also not necessarily my favorite, but it's fine. So let's have a look at the cards. So as you can see, and every time I talk about this deck, I always say the same thing. So basically, I'm not going to spend too much time about it, but it's a modern IWS. It is still based on the IWS, but it's got a very modern take. And also because it's Find Your Magic, that's the title, it also shows you a very witchy kind of take on the IWS. I absolutely love this world card, the perspective, the way in which the water is covering part of the body. It's just really beautiful, really beautiful. It is witchy, it is modern, it's just really fantastic. I think that it's not that easy. Personally, I have rehomed a few very modern decks that just didn't do anything for me. So it's not like I like all of these modern decks. I absolutely don't. But the ones that I do like, I feel that they really speak to me. And so this is one of the two that I propose in the poll for my members to vote. And the other one, as I was saying earlier, is this one here. There's my, sorry, I don't know if you can see, probably not, but there is my coffin. So this is basically my world card of a very dark but also whimsical kind of deck. So this is a skeleton. I don't know if you can see, and is the skeleton is bathing, is taking a me time, a little bit of me time, this 20 minutes after a really long, hard day at work. And is bathing into this coffin-shaped bathtub with a candle, with this red candle. And when you light it up, I still cannot light up like candles, but when you do light it up, it's really, it looks like it's a bloodbath, literally. So it is quite cool, and it keeps on sliding away. I don't know why, but in any case, it's right here next to me. So the other one, as I was saying earlier, is the Unveiled Tarot, and at the moment it's Winnie, it's the one that is Winnie. So if you want to join our membership, there's always a lot of stuff to do. I was talking to one of my members a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying, you're giving us so much material. And one thing that she was saying she really loves is that yes, it's true that I give a lot of material, so a lot of rituals to do, meditation, rituals with candles, rituals with essential oils, custom spreads to use a specific deck with, and all sorts of things. And also I give out, for example, if you're one of my Starlight members, I also give up playlists of songs that are for the theme of the month. But it's also true that you can still follow, even when you don't do when you don't use any of that material, you can still follow through with the videos. So she was saying that she's she's been a member for almost 2 years, and she said she really likes the structure of my membership for this year, because I changed it from last year, and so I'm probably going to keep the same structure. But stay tuned, because I'm going to do a video in which I'm going to show what I've done with my members this year, and I'm going to explain what I want to do next year. So this deck, it's probably going to be the one deck that we're going to study. And yes, again, a very modern take on the RWS. It is still RWS based. This deck has a very special kind of structure in the sense that it's not just modern in the images, but also it does give you almost as if it were a second kind of peek to the elements on the cards, to give you the opportunity to read the cards with a, let's say, a very strong insight. So this is the Ten of Swords, for example. So the appearance is that everyone is having a ball, everyone is enjoying their night out, but within the frame, so I don't know if you can see this, but all of these cards have a frame in the center of, more or less in the center of the card. So within the frame, what we can see is almost as if we were lifting a veil from the scene that we're witnessing. So when we're lifting the veil, we can see that even if this person is one of the others that is actually laughing and smiling and having a good time, at the same time we see that she's the one that actually has been stabbed, I'm assuming 10 times with swords on the back, which is very symbolical and very similar to the RWS. I mean, the Ten of Swords is someone who's been stabbed 10 times on the back, to point to the probably overdoing it, because to kill someone you don't necessarily need to stab them 10 times on the back. And if you know your CSI, if you know your Criminal Minds and so on and so forth, which I absolutely love, I would say that this points to overkill. It points to probably also a sense of revenge or passion. There was a lot of passion in the killer in the moment in which they stabbed this person 10 times in the back. There was rage, and so it makes it personal. So it's not just a casual killing, it's really personal. There was something that needed to come out. So I love to see the way in which this deck works and all of the cards work with this sense of unveiling, removing, lifting the veil into the truth. And every single one of these cards is doing the same. So I'm really excited. If this is the one that we're going to study with my members, I'm really excited to do a deep dive in this deck. It's gonna take probably a couple of months because I want to do a lot of exercises, meditation, custom spreads and stuff like that, because I want to give everyone the opportunity to resonate with the deck. And I'm also really excited for myself because I have done a walkthrough of this deck, but I've been using it so many times. I've been taking it with me when I went to the tarot conference in Perth, or even now recently in London. But at the same time, I really want to do a thorough study of each and every one of the cards, because as we always say, not all of the cards resonate, and I want to see why, and I want to just give all of the cards that don't resonate a second chance, and we'll see how it goes. So absolutely stoked. So really, really excited about this deck. By the way, I have my iced tea on the side here because it is morning. But it's already 37 degrees outside, and inside it just feels like we're boiling. Moving on to the next deck, or decks. So I'm really spending time with these 3 decks. And actually, they're all 3 of them, they are mass market. However, there is something to be said about the Le Grand Circus and Sideshow Tarot by Joe Lee. This is a US Games deck, but it is now out of print. It's only from 2015, so only from 10 years ago. But somehow I do believe that there is a very narrow choice of all of the decks that they will always keep on printing. And this one just wasn't popular enough for US Games to decide to renew the contracts. And so it became first out of print and out of stock. And now it's actually rather difficult to find. Now, please understand that every time I say this is because I'm basing myself on the kind of research that I do here in Australia. Sometimes we cannot buy. There might be someone selling this deck overseas. We cannot buy them because maybe they don't ship it to us. So it is difficult to find here in Australia. I was able to find it at the Tokyo Tarot Museum, and I was very happy to be able to buy it. Then, when it comes to the Divine Circus Oracle by Alana Fairchild, this one is still available, but a different edition. And it's a Blue Angel deck. So Blue Angel is doing lately, I don't know what they're doing. They're reprinting everything. Which is great, but at the same time, when they're reprinting, they're changing something. So when they're changing something and it's for the better, I'm all for it. But when they're changing something and they're actually making one of their most beautiful decks, for me, the Divine Circus Oracle looks exactly like any other deck that they have printed lately, then I'm not so happy. This one used to be unique. I mean, look at this. Even the box, the image on the box is absolutely gorgeous. And it's talking about the Divine Circus. So there is that element of circus, and I really, really like that. These were the backs. Now, if you have the new version, they don't have these backs. They have a very generic, let's say, very spacey, very cosmic vibes kind of back. Also, they are borderless, which sometimes is better even for me, but I believe that this kind of frame is actually excellent for the type of artwork and the colors that we see. So I will show you the cards later, but there are so many things that for me make this deck unique as it is right now. And when you look at the new edition, and this one is the card that you see on the box of the new edition, they even got rid of the banner, Guest of Honor, for example. It's still, the card will still be called Guest of Honor, but I think that they just write it in very unobtrusive kind of letters at the bottom of the card, which is great if you want an immersive deck. But if you want the experience of the Divine Circus, this is the deck that you want. This version, unfortunately, is out of print now. If you're lucky enough to find someone that still sells them on, I don't know, eBay, Etsy, your Facebook group, and so on and so forth, I highly recommend. So if you like it, obviously, if you want it, and if you also feel like me, like the new edition is not very circusy, then it pays to keep an eye on all of those Facebook listings. This one is the Roadshow Wisdom. So I love it because it's, sideshow, circus, roadshow, and it's all about the circus basically. And I just always feel fascinated this time of the year in specific about the roadshow, the circus, the sideshow and everything, because I used to go to the circus when I was very little. As a matter of fact, I think that one of my very first memories was to go to the circus, buy a balloon, and then sitting on the balloon and breaking it. Of course, I was in my dad's car, and it was like, when I broke it, I was ready to, start crying, and he turned to me and he went, "Oh, well, you had your 5 minutes." I think that he actually made me laugh, so I probably started crying anyway, but it was very whimsical, the way in which it was like, when the balloon exploded, it was obviously surprised, and then he turned to me in the car and he went, "Oh, well, you had your time with it, so it's fine, let's go home." So this one is the Roadshow Wisdom Oracle deck. This is also, by the way, mass market. It has been released by Sacred Scribe Publishing. However, this one is, I believe, out just in Europe and in America. It's not out yet in Australia. You guys will have to wait until February, as usual, to buy this deck, to find it. This is also a deck that I bought in London. So very, very happy to have found it. And let's just start and have a look at all of these three together, because I really wanted to show you the way in which I work with them. Okay, so let me just quickly show you the cards, and then I'm going to show you how I work with them, because this is, by the way, the latest one, Roadshow Wisdom Oracle deck. So I was admiring this card. The art style is absolutely gorgeous. This is, as you can see, an archetype kind of deck, and I really like this. I, for one, strongly believe that when we put on a mask or when we put on a show and we work in a circus, that is literally the way in which we are using an archetype. And the fact that we're using it is probably because we need to. It's probably because we have something within ourselves that we need to let out. And so wearing this mask can give us an opportunity to let out whatever needs to be let out, but it also gives us the opportunity to take a break from everything else that is in our worlds at the moment. And that can be at times a little bit suffocating. And so this represents, on the one hand, it's a release because it releases something that needs to come out, but at the same time it's a release or relief because it gives you the opportunity to not keeping up appearances, not having to be exactly what everyone else expects you to be. And so it's a very liberating kind of deck. When it looks at all of these archetypes. What I like to do is show you that the archetypes can be used in many different ways, but in particular what I'm really liking to do at the end of the year, that is something that I do at the end of every year, I actually give myself the opportunity to go back through all of the things that have happened in a year, using the cards to see what things, for example, were true to my core self, what others I had to go through them by wearing a mask because of whatever reason, maybe because I had to be strong when I wasn't, or maybe because I had to be accepting a reconciliation when I didn't want to, or sometimes when I had to pretend that I was confident when I was not. So those were all the masks that I had to wear, and that every one of us has to wear in a year, whenever we're presented with something that is really, truly challenging for us. And so this one is the deck that will give me the opportunity to identify those masks that I've been wearing. Then I want to see what's the archetype that is behind those masks. And so that's when I will look at the Divine Circus Oracle. And just to show you quickly the cards, these are very beautiful, but they're also very personal. So when you look at these cards, for example, you see activities besides personalities. In here, to me, this is all about personalities, even when there is maybe an element that points to an activity, which is not on many cards. I'm just trying to find one here, but obviously I don't. But as you can see, they're all very, this one could be considered, for example, an activity. This is Lady Luck, and she's holding a ticket with number 50. So what I like about this is that it still points to the personality of the card, of the archetype, rather than the activity. So this to me is almost as if it were this deck unveiled. So we are lifting the veil out of the personality and the archetype that I needed to, the mask that I needed to put on in order to go through stuff this year. And this is going to show me the true self, the true me that is behind those masks. So that's why I like to use them together. And then I just wanted to pair them with a tarot deck that was feeling at home with the personalities and the archetypes that are presented in the two Circus oracles. So obviously the Legrand Circus and Sideshow Tarot was absolutely perfect. I even tried to use it with the Phantasmagoria Tarot. It doesn't work as well. What shows up on these cards is something very strange, very odd, very unusual for us. So unusual, as a matter of fact, that we actually consider the activity of going to the circus and paying the entry ticket because we want to be confronted with this something that is so different from us, something that is alien, something that we do not recognize, but we're still fascinated by it because we know deep down that even though we don't recognize it first sight, it does strike a chord within ourselves. And so it needed to be a tarot deck that had been through that kind of experience. So the characters on the cards need to be feeling at home when I was pulling them together with the oracles. And this feels like, unless there's a different Circus Tarot, which I There is one by Lisa Robertson actually, so I could start using that one as well, but I feel almost like the let's say the art style and also the color palette, it just makes more sense to use this one when using those two oracle decks. So let me just set up and show you the way in which I use these. Okay, so give it a good shuffle, and I start with this oracle deck, which is the Roadshow Wisdom. This one here. These are the backs, by the way. These are absolutely fantastic, and they go really well with these ones. As you can see, they're very similar. You see the circus tent, and also the colors are very similar as well. So after a good shuffle, now I'm going to pull a card, and that's going to be the card that will point to a situation in which I have to wear a mask, and it's going to show me that specific mask. So let's go here, and I'm just going to pick one card. This one, yeah. Okay, the rabbit. So when generally I start, it's a vertical kind of reading. So I start with here, and then I go here and then here, but I don't have room enough on the frame here. So I'm just gonna move it to a horizontal reading. So we're gonna start from here, and that's the rabbit. So sometimes I don't really know what these archetypes are talking about. I have an idea, but it's always really nice for me to actually go back to the guidebook and have a look at what the creator intended. So this is the guidebook from this deck. I usually skip the poem form, the poem-like introduction here, and I just go directly to the writing in prose, which is almost as if it were the person itself, the archetype itself speaking directly to you. So there I am, folks, middle of the big finale. The crowd's buzzing, the magician's out there throwing around the big words like astonishing spectacle, unbelievable illusion. I mean, well, I'm in the hat, completely out cold. You see, it goes straight to the point, and it's already very evocative, and it's already giving me vibe of maybe a couple of things that I had to go through, in which I felt like I was out cold in the hat, that everything was happening around me, but I had to step back, and knowing that I will have my moment at a certain point, just be patient for that to come. That's right, I'm supposed to be the showstopper, but honestly, I've been pulled out of that hat so many times. I could do it in my sleep, and apparently that's exactly what I did. Do you see how deep it goes? So it resonates so much when it comes to really going deep into something that has happened to you during this year. Well, for me, I always refer to the last 12 months, but you can do it at any time of your life in your practice. And so, you know, I keep on reading. I wake up, panic mode activated, the magician's arm dips into the hat, reaching around like he's searching for his lost keys, and I just freak out. No time for a graceful exit. I go full on panic rabbit. I jump out of the hat like I've been shot out of a cannon. Legs everywhere, fur flying, knock the magician's wand out of his hand, bam. The audience gasps. Then, as if that wasn't enough, I land square on the magician's assistant, who's balancing a tray of carrots. So it's, you know, I can actually pinpoint directly to a moment in my life in the last 12 months in which obviously this is a metaphor for something that I find myself doing. And this is speaking to me so clearly, so directly, and yet through a metaphor that I'm always, the level of shock that I reach every time that I use this deck, it's just out of this world. So I really love the way in which it introduces the archetypes and the card, and it tells you the way in which the protagonist of the card is feeling, but it really feels like it's talking to me about how I felt. So the card explanation is also, sometimes I read it, sometimes I don't. If, like in this case, it resonates so much that I don't need to read it, then I skip it. But just for you to know, there is also here an interpretation, surprise and revelation, disguise and illusion, unexpected opportunities, hidden potential, adaptability and flexibility, joy and wonder. I know that this is because it needs to be a card that resonates with most people that are using it, but personally I try and find out whether the first introduction of the card is really speaking to me rather than going to the card explanation, because when I go to the card explanation, it almost makes me feel like my epiphany when I saw the card was not correct, because maybe it points to different stuff. Trust your instinct on this case. Whenever you're using an archetype deck, trust your instinct, because archetypes can mean a lot more on an intuitive level than they do when they are explained, they're being explained. So saying that, we start with this, and this is already reminding me of a moment in the last 12 months in which I literally felt like this panic-stricken rabbit that is supposed to be the showstopper, but they forget what to do, or they were sleeping and then they just panic and explode, everything changes. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask this deck what was actually happening within myself when this happened. So in here I was wearing this particular mask, but what was behind the mask? And so obviously give it a good shuffle, and which I did earlier, and I'm just gonna pick another card and I'm gonna put it here, for example, and let's have a look. So this one is the Gypsy Columbine, so I'm just gonna put it here. Normally it would be vertical, and then even in this case I'm just gonna go back to the guidebook and have a look at what it says for this particular card. I find that it's always a very good experience to read what has been written about the card. This is Elena Fairchild, and I obviously really like the way she writes. This is number 38, so it's almost at the end. It does come with 42 cards. So when I was going through the guidebook for the Roadshow Wisdom, I was actually skipping the first part because it was let's say more of an introduction. The opposite is true when it comes to Divine Circus Oracle, because this one, the first part, is actually a kind of an introduction that functions almost as a wrap-up or a summary of what you can find here. And so most of the time, this is actually what I end up reading. So the free spirit in you is rewilding itself, shedding social conditioning and past patterns of behavior. And this is already working for me. So this is already telling me that, yeah, I found myself in that situation in which I was supposed to behave in a certain way, but it became so boring for me that I actually did not even prepare, because I have done it a million times, and then what ended up happening was me forgetting what to do, how to do it, feeling completely out of my own environment, and so just having this overreaction to what was happening. But this was the mask that I was wearing. What was truly going on behind the curtains was this. So it was that the reason why I didn't prepare for this occasion was because I found it like I had outgrown this specific task of mine. I was ready to shed that label. I was ready to remove that mask and lift that veil. I was ready to show the world that no, I was not that rabbit that was the showstopper and it was coming out of the hat and behaving. I was tired of doing that, and that's one of the reasons why I was not prepared. So this is already working for me. And generally speaking, I might look into what it says here in the healing trick, for example, because this offers you a way to dig deeper into your feelings and try and see whether you can heal a wound that could potentially be there. But what I do at this point, I actually pull a few cards from the tarot deck, and I say a few, not a specific number, because I start pulling one, and if that one doesn't really help me, then I pull another one, and so on. I generally don't need to pull more than 3 cards, and 3 cards is actually more than enough. With 2 cards, I generally feel like I know what I'm doing, I know where I need to focus on. So the reason why I'm pulling tarot cards is because I want to see with a very, let's say, keen eye to details, what these two cards mean in my life at present. So I know what happened, and I know now the reason why it happened, but I want to know what I need to do. And so obviously, shuffling this one as well. And then I'm just gonna pull one card. Let's see this one, for example. So this is the Two of Wands. And we can see the symbols that we're so used to, because it's a person standing in front of more or less two sticks, two wands, holding a globe on the palm of their hand. This already works for me, and I know exactly how this one resonates and works with these two cards. So I've been in a situation in which I did not do what I was supposed to do. And it was something that I was so used to do that I was not prepared, because I thought I can do this with my eyes closed, and it just did not work as well as it was supposed to. So this one really made me surprised, and the idea that I was not even making any kind of effort in this situation comes from the fact that I was actually tired of having to do that. I didn't prepare because I had lost the passion that I used to have when I was doing these kind of things. And so the tarot in here tells me that that's the main reason, because you are in a Two of Wands. I was in a Two of Wands situation in which I was literally assessing everything that I have and putting everything on the palm of my hand, which is literally my whole world. And my whole world is so limited and so small that it fits. It's very small and it fits on the palm of my hand. And so I'm actually looking at the horizon. I'm preparing myself for the Three of Wands, which is then the card in which you put your wheels into motion. And that will be the catharsis, that will be the solution to this situation. So this is the way in which I love using these three decks together. I can assure you 100% this never fails. Moving from one archetype that identifies a situation, telling you what's behind the veil or what's behind the mask with a different archetype, and then asking the tarot to tell you, what do I do now? And it really always works, and it literally blows my mind. Okay, so another deck that I am absolutely loving lately is the Scissors of the Witch Yule Oracle. Now, this one is the deck that I'm using with my members when I do the Energies of the Week videos. And the reason why I'm loving it is because I'm actually rediscovering it. I think that when this one came out in specific, it was immediately after the Samhain version. And when we saw this one, we loved it, but because, well, personally at least, I loved it. But because I was so in love with the Samhain version of these decks, this felt like I was comparing it all the time with the Samhain. And it's just not something that I should have done, because when you do start comparing it to another oracle deck that is specific to a different season of the year, it just doesn't make sense. So Yule is completely different from Samhain. Yule tells you about a different set of energies. Yule is also, let's say, when you're talking about the veil, because obviously we talked about the veil this morning. It looks like this is the argument on the table. It is a different stage of your perception and your relationship with the veil. When it's Samhain, the veil is at its thinnest, and so obviously for you it's almost as if you're sensitive enough, you will feel like you are a receptacle. You're receiving all of these messages from the beyond. And in that way, the veil is almost transparent. And in many, many cases, for many of us, it will be completely lifted. So when you're looking at Yule, it's actually the restart of something completely different. You're not asked to, you may remember your ancestors in the sense that obviously Christmas, let's say Christmas, because Yule in the Northern Hemisphere coincides with the Christmas time. Obviously for us it doesn't in the Southern Hemisphere. But when you go through the Christmas time, you can remember your loved ones that are not there with you any longer, but it's in a different way that you remember them. At Samhain, they're alive. They come back alive in, obviously between brackets, but they have voices. At Christmas, it's your own idea of your own relationship with them that you actually celebrate, your own memories that you celebrate. So they're not independent like they were in Samhain. So when it comes to the celebrations and everything that goes around you and the atmosphere and the energies and the vibes of this season, they are, to me, they sound and feel completely different. But when you do compare them to Samhain, as I did with the stack, this one kind of fell short, because I was so in love with the Samhain oracle that this one just didn't feel like it was doing enough. And that was totally unfair, because it's not supposed to be as piercing as the Samhain oracle was. I now have been reconsidering and rediscovering this deck. I pull one card for each and every one of the zodiac alchemical groups of zodiac signs, so the fire signs, etc. And then I taught myself how to really slow down and understand and read the poetry-like sentence that is at the bottom of the cards. But then what I really like to do is going into the guidebook and read something out of them. And I will have to say that in many cases I agree and it's very much resonating with me. But in other cases, I'm kind of like upset, like what happened this week. I was reading for the air signs, the energies for this week. And I'm an air sign, I'm an Aquarius. And so I was reading that it was the Earth card. And it was saying, you're too analytical, too logical. And this is what happens when you don't put your heart into what you're doing. And I'm like, this is such a wrong thing to say, especially because it felt to me like it was written by a person who has absolutely no idea what air signs feel and what they go through and their personalities. Air signs, yeah, we might be logical and analytical, but it's not because we don't have heart. It's probably because our heart is incredibly strong and or sometimes overwhelming and overpowering that we find refuge sometimes in what is feeling for us like we can control it. So mathematics, we can control it. Being analytical, being logical. When I am confronted with a very overwhelming, emotionally overwhelming situation, the first thing that I do is I try and use my mind in order to break it down into little things that I can actually endure. That is not being cold. So I was really upset with that card, but it was really good because it brought me to a level of conversation with myself, with my members, with other people in my life that I feel like they would want to participate in this discussion. And so I really am grateful, even though I did not agree with that specific card, I am quite grateful to the deck for giving me the opportunity to go even deeper into that sort of interpretation of the card itself. So really rediscovering that deck, and I'm very happy that I did not rehome it when I bought it, because I really, really like it. Then moving on to the next one, this deck has been making me very emotional a number of times. I honestly cannot tell you how deep this deck can go, and it's the Lubanko Tarot. I have the indie edition. Let me just tell you, this deck feels completely different. This is the mass market edition, and it's not that different from the indie edition. I mean, there's a couple of different cards for the lovers cards, but because it's different, different art style, different scene, different image. But I don't know what makes it so much more approachable. It makes it so that you can feel at home when using the cards, and that is something that I did not feel the few times in which I was reading with the original indie edition. Honestly, I don't know what it is. It might be the images, it might be the different layout, For example, I do seem to remember that the original indie edition have borders and this one doesn't, which is something that they're going to do for the Blood Moon Tarot as well, which they keep on pushing it. I don't know, the release date has been pushed to the end of April in Australia, so it's really heartbreaking. But that one indeed had really gorgeous borders, I have to say, in the indie edition, and the mass market edition will not have borders. I don't know what's happening, but usually I can wear this ring on this finger, but today, I don't know if you can tell, well, there you go, I'm losing it. So I'm just gonna remove it, because otherwise the more I use my finger, then the more risk I'm taking that it's going to fall on the card. So as I was saying, I really cannot wait for the Blood Moon Tarot, but then again, I don't know what's happening there. We have waited so long. I do have the original edition, but I really want to see what they're doing with the mass market one. Really gorgeous cards. So going back to the Lubanko. As I was saying, the shock, really shock. It was a shock for me to see how well these cards resonate for me now. And it was a shock because the original indie just doesn't work for me. I love it, it's beautiful, it's a collectible item. And all of the reasons why it's safe in my collection and I will not reharm it. But at the same time, I'm really asking myself, why do I feel the way I feel while looking at these cards that are exactly the same, apart from 1 or 2 cards, as the indie? And I did not feel that way when I first started using the indie. So this deck is bringing up to the surface so many feelings that sometimes I just need one card, especially when it's a card such as the Hierophant. They're always kind of, you will find them triggering at times and confronting at other times. But you see, something that we need to accept in our tarot practice is that sometimes we need to be discombobulated, right? Sometimes we need to be shaken because we need to understand some stuff that we don't necessarily have the courage to confront ourselves with when everything is going fine, when we can still be okay. Okay, yeah, no, there is a small problem that is nagging me and it's always at the back of my mind, but I really don't want to look at it because right now I don't have the time. This is the deck that will call your bullshit when we are doing that. This is the deck that will bring back up everything that has been nagging you, but you never had the courage to confront yourself with, and it will force you to confront yourself with it. Now, I'm making it sound like it's a kind of a Barbara Walker kind of deck. It's not. It's still very fully immersive, very, very immersive as a deck, and I think that is probably because or thanks to the art style, but at the same time it's very compassionate. The compassion that I feel out of these cards, these images, look at the moon card, one of the most beautiful and yet mysterious, but also really hitting in the right spot kind of moon card that I've ever seen. So what I wanted to do is I'm just going to show you a 3 card spool with this deck and you will see what I mean. Okay, so I shuffled enough and let me just show you. I just pulled 3 cards out of it. It's almost as if it were a divination based reading, which sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I don't have a particular intention, which is something that I don't do very often. Every time that I do pull cards out of a deck, I force myself to have an intention. Because I know that giving it a direction makes it work a lot better. But in this case, the deck is doing everything, so I don't really need to ask a question or anything. I'm just gonna pull these cards. The Ten of Pentacles. So this one already gives me the idea of the completion of so many tasks that I've taken upon myself, and also the way in which I want myself to teach, to be taught, or to teach myself to grow my resources, be a better person when it comes to being a support to my friends, my husband, my family, and so on and so forth. And so the 10 of Pentacles will feel to me like I will finally reach that point in which I will be comfortable with everything that I have to give, and the moment that will be the moment in which I will start actually giving back. And let's see another card here. So we got the Wheel of Fortune. I'm very much looking forward to next year. The 2026 numerological meaning of next year is the Wheel of Fortune. So this is the major arcana that is pretty much for the whole community. 2 + 0 + 2 + 6 is 10, and this is the number. So obviously when we look at the Wheel of Fortune, we know that there will be ups and downs. We know that there will be things that probably will not pan out, but at the same time we will be given a second chance, a second opportunity, and some things will actually do bring fruits. Now, one thing that I also wanted to say is that it is a fantastic combination next year for all of us, because this year, from a Chinese zodiac point of view, we are at the tail end of the year of the snake, and snakes are all about shedding old skin and getting rid of something that no longer serves us. But at the same time, we're not immediately reborn into the year of the horse, which is 2026, and we'll start in 2026. We're not there yet, so we're still shedding something, but we're incredibly tired because we've been doing that for almost 12 months. And at the tail end of that moment in which we're getting rid of something, obviously we're kind of missing resources because we need to be replenished. So if you feel tired in these kind of weeks, then just rest assured that it is a kind of a change that we have, and it's going on within ourselves. It is every 9 years, so there is this kind of cyclical change. We're at the end of it. But I also love the fact that next year will be the year of the horse, and in combination with the Wheel of Fortune as the major arcana, because we will have the determination of the horse to bring everything to a fruition. But at the same time, we will also have to confront ourselves with the possibility that something will not go as planned. It's a really beautiful kind of situation in which we will find ourselves next year. And one last card that I want to pull, the King of Wands. Okay, so obviously this is teaching me the energy that I will need to harness and use and wield in my practice, within my work, my experiences in personal life, and also with the people that are part of my circle. The King of Wands is the archetype of the startup founder. They have this kind of energy in which they are literally producing stuff, they're literally making stuff. It is the suit of fire, so obviously fire is the element that moves one thing from one state of the matter into the next state of the matter. So there is this sense of, it's not just an alchemical symbol, an alchemical element. Fire is also what it is used within alchemical elements to produce a different state of the matter. So it is incredibly important, and it's also something that we need to use. So we need to acknowledge fire, but we also need to use it, and use it in the right way. The King of Wands is obviously the master of the skills of knowing how to use fire, because it is the last one of the core cards and the maximum point of evolution you can have in the core cards. So this is teaching me that I will definitely have to harness this energy, that I will have this creativity, this creative energy that will be a protagonist for next year for myself. So when I do readings like this, it might not be extremely emotional. I've had readings that were very, very emotional with this deck, with these cards. But I can assure you that this is one of those decks that really reaches deep within yourself and probably brings back to the surface something that needs to be shed, needs to be released at times, or needs to be nurtured at others. And I know that it sounds like I'm describing shadow work, but this is not just about shadow work. It feels more complete to me. And I'm absolutely loving this deck lately. So next I want to show you a book. It's a Tarot Grimoire by Anthony Dorn. And I just wanted to say this one is a fantastic book. It's got a foreword by Benebell. It says Spreads and Spells for a Magical Life. I have just acquired it probably a few days ago, like a week ago, and I have not stopped using it ever since. It's been my companion. It's almost like it were a book that I want to have with me at all times, and I almost wish it were smaller because I cannot really fit it in my bag, but that's my problem. So this deck, it feels like a deck. You know what? That was very Freudian, because it actually feels like a hug deck for me right now, but it is a Grimoire, so it will come with so much information, and at the same time, it also gives you the opportunity to use your decks in a different way, look at them in a different way. But it also takes you on a journey through all of the major and the minor arcanas. I honestly really love it. I love the way in which it pairs up a card with a particular spread. I know that there's a number of books that will do that for you, but this one is very simple, very linear, and it is very user-friendly. So sometimes, for example, what I do is I pull a card maybe out of the Lubanko Tarot. For example, I pulled the 10 of Pentacles, right? So let's go to the 10 of Pentacles, and I just wanted to show you how beautiful it is, this grimoire, to use in this particular way. So this is the 10 of Pentacles. I probably have to zoom out. Let me just see if I can show you the whole book. Yeah, there you go. So obviously I'm expecting it for copyright reasons, but also to be used with any deck. The thumbprint of the card that we've got here is from the Pixie, the original, the OG. And then we got the 10 of Pentacles. Then it doesn't, so it's not one of those books that it goes on and on and on for like 3 pages about the meaning of the card. Because I feel like we have hundreds of those books, and some of them are absolutely fantastic, don't get me wrong. But I personally feel like I have enough of those. And I honestly, whenever I look a new book, I want something different. In order for me to click the buy button. But this one really fills that space, because it's got of something that goes with the explanation of the card, but actually gives you something more. So it still gives you the key concepts, because you still want to have them at hand. And it says financial stability, inheritance, material success, and family values. We all know this, but it just does repeat that just in case, in order for you to understand where you need to position yourself when looking at the rest. This card is a culmination of long-term financial plans and positive actions. The 10 of Pentacles represents solid foundation in all areas of career, family, and money. This is a positive card in most situations, as protection and resources are available to anyone connected to the card. And it does have another sentence, but then you move on to something else. Financial stability spread. So this is a spread that is customized in order for you to if you want a deeper understanding of the card that you just pulled. So I pulled the 10 of Pentacles, and I'm going to, let's pretend that I'm going to do this custom spread here. Financial stability spread. The tarot spread for the 10 of Pentacles is a financial roadmap to bring financial stability to your life. You can carry out the spread at any time. You don't have to wait for a new year or new moon to do it. It is a spread of action. So ensure you come back to it and reflect on what is working and what is not. Did you get off track for 1 month? No problem. Just get back to into alignment and pick up where you left off. It's a big spread, so take your time with it. So this one divides all of the cards into 6 months, as you can see here. And for each and every one of those months, it's really forcing you to confront yourself in, for example, asking what is the money energy for this month. And once you identify with the card what the money energy is, then it's asking you, what can you do about it? You know, how do I make the most out of it? And it does that for each and every of these 6 months. Now, I like that because when it comes to financial stability, especially when you're looking into investments, for example, nothing has a very short turnaround. And if it does, sometimes it means that it's including a lot of risk. So, and it's sometimes even speculative when we are talking about investments. But when we're talking about a really good plan for your financial stability, it just really forces you to try and understand what you've done. And sometimes admitting that when you do make a mistake, it's okay. You still can get back on track because you have a much wider vision, of 6 months rather than just a couple of weeks. Then what I really like is this one as well. It says find the perfect home spell. Finding the perfect home to buy or rent can be sometimes time consuming and arduous. The stress that comes from with finding housing can feel all consuming. The spell for the Ten of Pentacles is perfect for when you want that dream house to live in. So this one is going to be something that I will need to do because I will soon find myself in a situation in which I will have to move again. I can't believe it, but this is the reality in Sydney, Australia, unfortunately. So this does have a best time to cast. It's a new moon, obviously, and it tells you what you will need: a printed map of the neighborhood you want to live in, a piece of paper, gold pen, a key, and a gold ribbon. I really love the fact that this will have you do stuff. It's a spell that will have you gather ingredients, between brackets, and then you will need to use these ingredients, and it's something very practical that I always like to accompany my spreads with whenever I do meditation or journaling into a spread, if there's an exercise. And that's exactly what I do with my members. I literally give them the idea of combining a custom spread with activities. For my Styler members, for example, we have activities for basically once every 2 days, reflecting the theme of the month. And so it tells you how to use them. I'm not going to read that out loud, obviously, because you might want to buy this book in order to be able to use it. But let me tell you, it is such a refreshing approach or at least this is the way it works for me. This is my personal approach to things in my practice that I like to do. I don't just like to read the cards. I also like to do stuff with books such as this one. And this is, to me, more valuable than other books in which, it tells you the meaning of the card and it goes on for maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 pages. But this one actually gives you that practical way to bond with the card that you don't necessarily find in other books. So I highly recommend this. By Anthony. It's a mass market. I think it's released by Llewellyn. Yeah, there you go. So it's a mass market Llewellyn book, and it's readily available. It's still on stock, still being printed. So when it comes to the last 2 decks that I wanted to show you, I'm kind of cheating because they are not mass market decks, unfortunately. But I wanted to include them in this video because I do love them. I love using them. It's probably the 2 decks that I'm using the most, let's say in the last few days. So ever since I got back from London. So the reason why I'm showing them together is, again, because I use them combined. So one is a tarot deck, one is an oracle deck, and I'm talking about these 2 here. So the Heartscape Tarot, again, not a mass market deck. And the Voices of the Wheels Oracle, this was a Kickstarter campaign from not long ago. And I was really shocked because I think it literally fulfilled its goal probably at the mid-November. And then I did not understand, but it did say so clearly on the campaign. It says that I don't always read everything that they say in the campaign, but the decks were ready. And they were already printed and everything, and they were just ready to be shipped out. So when you were a backer and the campaign ended and it was successful, the day after, I received a notification of shipping of the deck. I'm like, I didn't even combine the 2. Like, I didn't even recognize that it was the same that I had just paid for. And so I was like, which one is this again? Which deck is this? And then I got the deck after 1 week. So this is the first time in all of my Kickstarter campaigns that I've ever backed when it comes to tarot and oracle decks in which I received a deck 1 week after the campaign ended. And I think that I even might have used a very quick shipping method because honestly, it's just... But obviously it was a positive surprise, and I immediately wanted to use it with the Heartscape Tarot because, well, first of all, they have the same format. So as you can see, they are both horizontal decks. And also, by the way, this one does come with a really beautiful book, which is this one here, Voices of Wales Oracle, the Compass book. So the author is Psyche Nath, and the illustrations are made by Cristina Scagliotti. Sounds Italian. I'm thinking that she might be. I know that the creator, Nath, is from Portugal. That's also something else that really shocked me. I received this deck, this parcel from Portugal, which is, you know, even more far away than, let's say, Germany or Italy, and it came in 1 week to Australia. So I really think that they might have used some really fast shipping. It's really, really good, very well written, I have to say. And it does give you a lot of work to do if you so wish with each and every one of the cards. And because it's based on illustrations of whales, when I saw it, I backed it immediately the moment I saw it because I love whales. I really, really love whales. I think that they're the most majestic animal on the planet. And, you know, if there's an oracle deck that shows me whales in each one of the cards, then I was super happy to have it. So let me just set everything up and I will show you the way in which I use it. Okay, so I usually, because these are landscape based instead of being portrait based, I use them this way. So I put the tarot deck, I split it in two as always, but instead of putting it side by side, I put one on top of the other, and generally it will look like this. However, I know that even when zooming out, I cannot fully show you. Well, maybe I can, but then we won't really see the cards. So I'm thinking I'm probably gonna do this and zoom in. Let me just see how it looks like if I do it this way, because I really want you guys to see the cards as much as we can, as I can show you. There you go. Okay, so obviously we are looking at a marine life themed deck because the voices of the whales, and so everything is under the water, and the illustrator has done a fantastic job because it really feels like you're submerged in the water, and I really, really like it. And you know, this is because this one is the Page of Cups, and obviously you see an orca here or a killer whale. And obviously that was a coincidence because I was not planning to do that. But the Heartscape Tarot is very beautiful. It does have a lot of cards based in water or underwater even. And the water is it's a very strong element in this deck. Also because this deck feels very watery in the sense that it's very emotional. It will bring up a lot of feelings, and it will, let's say, be cathartic from that point of view, which is something that sometimes I need. Sometimes we all need that from a deck in our collection. And then I just literally do like this, which is, you know, literally flipping the cards and just focusing on them and trying to understand what the message is. Now you will see that this oracle deck is incredibly great when it comes to giving you a let's say, opening up a gateway and giving you a vision or something you need to probably acknowledge in your life. And so, for example, whales knowledge, the knowledge with the Nine of Cups, to me that rings a bell, because the Nine of Cups is the card that tells us that, yeah, you can have your wish come true. But if you think about the original representation of the Nine of Cups, you will remember there is one person sitting and with these 9 cups surrounding this person, and somehow it gives you the idea that the wish that came true for you was not necessarily what it was what you thought you wanted, but it's not necessarily what you needed. And so it's the 9 that brings about the 10. It reminds you that the 10 is the completion of the Suit of Cups, not the 9. When you're alone and you're enjoying the fruit of the wish that have come true, it's not enough. You need to share it within your community. So the knowledge of this means to me that perhaps the next time that I wish for something, I will already incorporate the sharing into the wish. And obviously, you know, because these are the cups, so we're having, but this is beautiful. You know, see, like this, for example, we have whales and the King of Cups and whales and the blue, deep blue insights and clearing. And then we're moving on to others. So there's always, for example, this one, Whispers of the Tempest, caution, with the Five of Pentacles. There is the sense of loss in the Five of Pentacles, the sense of being left out in the cold, of being neglected, of being cast away, of being exiled. And generally speaking, you feel like the kid that is left out of all of the other friends playing together. And it's a really beautiful way for the oracle, the voices of the whales, to tell you exercise caution, because perhaps there's a reason. Perhaps you were the one that put yourself in this situation. You're responsible for everyone trying to push you away, and if so, what can you do about it? Is there a solution, and so on and so forth? So it really gives you the possibility to work a lot on yourself. This is not a combo that I would recommend when you want to do a divination reading, for example, because it doesn't necessarily work that way. But it is very insightful and also very chatty when you start reading the cards this way. So when you combine the meanings. A crossroad with the Wheel of Fortune. Of course, the Wheel of Fortune will present itself with all of these ups and downs, and whenever something goes up, it shows you that it can work, but whenever something goes down, then it puts you at the crossroads because you need to decide what to do next. So really, really beautiful. I actually just enjoy looking at the cards together. They have both a very cosmic kind of vibes, but at the same time, look at this one, for example. If you put it this way, it looks almost as if these two buildings, so this pyramid and this pyramid of skyscrapers, are almost converging in the same point. And in the point of conversion, there is the hangman, the hanged person, the hanged one. And so, you know, this one tells you ancestral vision is time. Time is one of the keywords of the hanged one, because you need time in order to shift perspective. You need time in order to sacrifice something for the greater good. You need time in order to actually look at what's around you, and you know, and absorb everything that was missing from yourself. Time is of the essence, but time is also something that has its own personality, and it will be accompanying you into this journey. So I really like this idea that sometimes there are the graphics in the cards that really tell you how to read them, or how to relate to the cards at least. So protection with the World card, for example, absolutely, because you're at the end of one cycle, and that's where you're at your most vulnerable, because you think that everything is already done and you don't need to put on any more effort. But that's when you really need to come into your own self and knowing what to do in that specific situation, because you then need to acknowledge that it's the end of one cycle and the beginning of another one. So protection is always something that you need to consider. Flow with the Lovers, absolutely. So I'm really, really loving these two together. I know that, as I said, it's kind of a cheat because neither one of these is mass market, but I really felt like I wanted to include them because they're absolutely gorgeous and I'm loving using them. So today it's been a lot about showing you the way in which I practice and not just the decks that I'm using. And I hope that that was helpful to give you an idea, to give you an inspiration on how to use decks and also the book. Let me know which decks you're loving lately. I'm always open to suggestions, but for now, thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time. Bye!